Hey, I'm Zach,
And I'm Jesse
and you're watching In Depth.
on Now You Know.
So we're going to be covering the Tesla fourth quarter earnings call on this In Depth, and they're always a fun affair. If you have time to go back and listen to them, I urge you to do it. Unfortunately, it's always done on like a conference call, so the audio is never great.
Right.
But you do get to hear Elon firsthand, who's talking almost the entire hour.
Right.
So that's why I love listening to it. So the big thing that happened last week was that there was an 8% drop in the Tesla stock one day on Wednesday because I guess a lot of people were upset about the capital expenditures. Last year in 2017, Tesla burned through $3.4 billion.
Right.
And that is more than they burned through in 2016, which was $1.3 billion. So I guess I'd like to just talk about this burning through stuff. They
Right.
did not take a big pile of money and light it on fire.
Right.
What did they do with the money?
It's more of an investment. It's more of they spent money to create things that will then create other things,
Right.
like a factory.
And so I guess I would look at it the exact opposite way. When the company's spending billions of dollars to build factories and to buy robots, that's a good thing.
Right.
Because those robots and factories are going to be able to make great products for years to come. So I don't look at it as burning through money.
Right.
The GAAP loss per share was $4.01, and that was the worst loss ever. And so I think that spurred the market to cut the value of Tesla stock, which, by the way, makes it a great value.
Right.
Just saying. Anyway, so they posted revenue of $3.28 billion with a loss of $675 million. Now, that's confusing for people who don't follow stocks. Wait a minute, they made $3.28 billion in revenues. So what does that mean? They earned it in revenues.
So basically, they sold that much in
Stuff.
In stuff, because there's a lot of things that they sell. They sell cars, they sell solar systems, they sell battery systems, both big and small. So those are all revenues.
Yep. And they lost money. So they lost $675 million. And you may say, well, if they raised so much money in selling stuff, how did they lose it?
Right.
How is that possible?
So I think that it's hard to imagine such a big company like Tesla and understanding how you can gain and lose so much money. So I think if we shrink this down to Tesla, the lemonade stand.
Oh, I like that.
So we're thinking about creating a lemonade stand called Tesla
Lemonade.
Incorporated or whatever. Yeah, Tesla Lemonade. And right now we don't have any money. We just have an idea that we're going to sell lemonade.
Okay.
And this kind of goes to like we're going to make electric cars and solar panels and everything like that. So first of all, we need to borrow money so that way we can buy the materials to build a lemonade stand.
Gotcha.
We need a pitcher. We need a juicer for the lemons. We need to buy lemons. We need to get water, sugar.
Maybe a little advertising.
Yeah, a little bit of advertising, some signage. And that is all investment. So that is all,
Oh, I thought that was burning cash.
No, so that's, I would, we would go to our parents, or I guess I would come to you and I would say, I want to start a lemonade stand. I'm thinking, I might need about $50 in materials to build one from scratch. And then
I would immediately say no. You're just burning cash, and that's a bad thing.
right. So I mean, it's that initial investment of building lemonade stand, and then getting the lemon squeezer and all that you need in order to make lemonade.
All right. So let's say your first quarter, your first day, you go out there and you only sell 1 cup of lemonade.
Right. That cup of lemonade cost me $50 because
I see.
if that's what I spent on all of the materials, it was $50. Then the next cup of lemonade that I sold would have cost me $25. Suddenly the two that I sold cost me $25. And let's say I'm selling them for 25 cents. Obviously, I have not made money back, right? I didn't take your money and then, go out and buy myself
an
Xbox or even a sports car or something like that. Like it was towards the goal of me producing lemonade in order to create revenue.
And in fact, if you were Elon Musk, the lemonade entrepreneur,
Right.
you would have been buying robots to make these cups of lemonade, which
Right.
would be a great investment because over time, the lemonade would get cheaper and cheaper.
Right. Which, does that make sense? Does it make sense to literally have robots make lemonade? Probably not. Although, if you think about how we mass produce lemonade, that's sort of how it works, right? But anyway, to get back to cars and Tesla.
Right. So they had revenue, which was the 25 cents you made.
Right.
And they had expenditures, which was the $50 that you spent.
Right.
And if you believe in Jesse's lemonade stand, if you believe that eventually he will be profitable once he gets up and running,
Right.
then you do want to invest in his stock. If you think he has a crappy idea and no one's going to drive by his lemonade stand,
Right.
then you think he's wasting and burning his money.
Right.
So in Q4, Tesla delivered 28,425 Model S and X vehicles and 1,542 Model 3 vehicles, which totaled almost 30,000 deliveries. Now, those deliveries grew 10% globally compared to the prior quarter of Q3, and they grew 28% compared to Q4 of 2016.
Yep.
It's good to compare quarters to the previous year quarter because, as we all know, people buy cars in kind of weird quarters.
Yep.
So, great. They basically sold 28% more cars since last year
Right.
in that quarter. One big concern had been whether or not the Model 3 would cannibalize Model S and X sales.
Right.
Basically, would you just stop buying Model S's and X's because the Model 3 came out? It turns out the opposite seems to be true. According to Tesla, in stores where the Model 3 is on display, customer foot traffic has increased, and the orders for Model S and X have in fact increased as well.
So that's great.
So you come in, you see the cars, and you get excited, and you're like, "Oh, I like this car. Let's."
Right, because I mean, in the same store with the Model 3 is on display, they also have the Model S and X, and
Which are sexy
those
cars.
those are fantastic cars.
So another big question this quarter was, hey, what happened to that autonomous coast-to-coast drive that was supposed to take place in December?
Right.
And they asked Elon that, and he said that basically because of what was going on at the factory with the Model 3 ramp-up problems, they put all of their collective wisdom and energy into that, and they took their focus away from the coast-to-coast drive. He said we could have done it if we had cheated, and that would have meant basically writing software that would have been specified to that route they were going to take. But he said that's cheating, and we didn't want to do that. So he said on the earnings call, in 3 months, 6 months on the outside, they would have the drive from LA to New York autonomously.
Yep.
And the good news here is he says that that software will be available for all the AP2 cars.
So as soon as they're able to do that cross-country drive,
That's what he
all
said.
the cars are going to be autonomous?
That's what he said.
That sounds...
It sounds too good to be true. Maybe some of the features would be rolled out to us.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Too early to say.
An interesting note I just picked up, I caught this, that 23% of Q4 deliveries were subject to lease accounting. So that means that 23% of cars were leased.
Interesting.
That gives you some idea of how many people lease compared to buy. So they're expecting a negative Model 3 gross margin in Q1 while still generating positive operating cash flows. What this means is that because we've talked about the ramp up has been slow, they've spent so much money to build the factories and the robots that the first few cars off the line you're losing money on them, just like the lemonade we talked about.
Right.
That's not a bad thing. It's just because the ramp is slow right now. Once the ramp gets faster, those cars are going to start making better margins.
Yep.
And the margins that they are getting right now, let's see what they compared to. So the Gap Automotive gross margin improved slightly compared to Q3 to 18.9%. So that's for all three cars. The Model S and X are making good margins, but obviously the Model 3 is negative. So when you average those out, you get 18.9%. That's what they're making in profit off of each car.
And so that improved slightly, which means that they're spending less to manufacture the Model S and X.
Right.
Which is a very good thing.
They're getting better and better at it,
Yep.
exactly. In Q4, Tesla opened 12 new stores and service locations. So that's 330 total locations worldwide at the end of the year. Their service capacity more than doubled in 2017, and that's partially due to new locations, but it's also through a 50% increase in the productivity of existing service locations, as well as a significant expansion of their mobile service fleet, which now has 230 vehicles.
That's great.
We just had one out the other day to look at something, and they are an amazing, they've got all the tools in there. They can do almost anything to the car remotely.
Right, in your driveway or at your place of work. It's
Yeah,
super
while you're
cool.
working, they come fix your car. Boom.
Yeah.
Here's something that came out of the letter, the Q4 letter. This year, we are starting a new chapter of our journey. Hundreds of thousands of people will switch to our EVs, and many others will turn their houses into near self-sufficient energy generators. This is the year when we believe we can achieve true cost parity. Producing a premium EV like the Model 3 will be no more expensive than producing an ICE vehicle, something that many believe is not yet possible. We'll continue to work as hard as we can to bring sustainable energy generation, storage, and consumption into the mainstream. And I really want to stress here, this is a big year for Tesla because the whole point of Tesla from the very beginning was not to make sexy, fast cars.
Right.
It was to make an affordable car. Now, in North America alone, we just talked about their mobile service. I forgot to mention that they're now completing 30% of all service jobs with their mobile vans. Also, 98% customer satisfaction from people who get work done by the mobile van.
I wonder why. I mean, you don't have to.
They
you don't
make
have to
coffee
drive anywhere.
in those vans. If you're out there like in
Yeah.
your driveway, they will make you coffee while they work on your car.
Wow.
I just thought that was amazing.
Wow, that's crazy.
Superchargers. What happened this year in superchargers?
All right, so in 2017, there were 338 new locations opened,
Wait, that's like almost one a day.
practically one a day, for a total of now 1,128 supercharger locations.
Wow.
So that was an increase of supercharger capacity of over 90%. They
Yeah.
practically doubled their supercharger capacity in a year. Can we just
Yeah.
think about that for a
That
minute?
in itself, for most companies, would be something to hang your hat
that
on.
is such a huge
That's
feat
just
that
like that's like a footnote for
and
them.
nobody talks about this. When
No.
they talk about the capital expenditures and all of this, they do not talk about the supercharger network. It is never on the radar of any analyst.
No.
They do not consider it to be the absolute biggest plus of owning a Tesla.
In fact, of all the analysts,
right.
no one asked a question about storage, solar, batteries. Practically no questions were asked about that. It was all about the Model 3.
Right. It's pretty ridiculous that, the coverage is just never on these very, important things. If you're buying an electric car, if you're buying any car, having a place to charge it if you want to travel long distances is super important.
This year, Tesla is going to deploy 3 times the storage capacity they deployed in 2017 for their energy storage. So we're talking batteries. And so in Q4, they deployed 143 megawatt hours of energy storage products, growing 45% from Q4 of last year.
Wow.
So again, there's a whole sector that they're growing like crazy in. Now, solar. Solar is one of those weird areas for Tesla because you remember they bought Solar City and then they changed the way that Solar City sells their products.
Right.
Normally there was a lot of salespeople going door to door. They stopped all that.
Right.
And they have seen a decline since then. But that's also because they don't want to sell leases anymore as much as they want to sell actual solar systems on your roof or loans to buy them.
Right.
So last quarter, Tesla deployed 87 megawatts of solar in Q4, and that's 20% less than they did in Q3.
So another thing that could be eating into the solar sales would be the solar roof.
Oh, that's right.
Believe it or not, I think a lot of people are going to be waiting for this complete solar roof replacement from Tesla. They're the only ones who are offering it. And so the initial production of Solar Roof is going to be made in the Gigafactory 2 in Buffalo, New York. And they've started in Q4. They're ahead of schedule with the hiring targets that they agreed with the state of New York.
Nice.
They are deliberately ramping up production at a gradual pace. When fully scaled, the Gigafactory 2 will be able to produce enough solar cells to add more than 150,000 new residential solar installations every year.
Wow. And they've already got more people signed up than they can possibly sell.
Right.
That's all good news coming down the pike.
That is really good news.
So I just want to list a few things that Tesla accomplished in 2017. The Model 3 mass market car, the world's largest battery in Australia, the Tesla semi-truck, the next generation Roadster, record deliveries of S and X, a phenomenal year, and they expect to have Model 3 production up to 2,500 cars by the end of March. That's just the end of next month.
Right.
5,000 a week by the end of Q2. That's the end of June.
Yep.
So if they can keep to that ramp, we're looking at exactly pretty much where they wanted to be eventually on this S-curve.
Yep. And Elon said if we can send a Roadster to the asteroid belt, we can fix Model 3 production. So it's kind of like,
And they did.
Right.
And he said that after hitting 5,000 cars a week, GAAP profitability on a sustainable basis will have no asterisk. So basically, once they get that production to 5,000 a week, the money's going to be flowing in. So they had some questions. One of the biggest questions was, where are the Model 3 production challenges now? And Elon answered, if you like sausage and law, you should watch neither being made. That's a famous Churchill quote. He said that the battery module production is the limiting factor. We all kind of knew that. He said they got too complacent and comfortable with battery modules because that's something they've been doing since the beginning of the company. And their subcontractor didn't work out. They put a lot of work into fixing that problem. In fact, something that should have taken 18 months to develop, they developed in 6 to 9 months. And a big solution for them was the Grohmann Design Company in Germany. They have figured out a way to automate zones 1 and 2. They've got that working in Germany now. They need to ship it over next month to the factory, get it going, and that should be fixing zone 1 and 2 into an automated system. Right now, that system is semi-automated, and what we mean by that is there's machines making the battery modules, but many parts have to be moved by hand.
Right. So this building of modules and parts of the car by hand is not true. It's just they have to move, parts back and forth by hand, and that's really one of the things that's holding them back.
And Elon said it's renewed his faith in humanity. The ability for people to rapidly adapt is quite remarkable because they've had to have people kind of figure out how to make these lines move. And the semi-manual line is exceeding all 3 of the other automatic lines right now. So that's how they're able to get the battery packs made fast enough, is largely by throwing a lot of people at this problem at the moment. But that's going to change very soon.
Yep.
Now, Adam Jonas from Morgan Stanley asked a very interesting question of Elon. He asked, okay, you're going to be working as the CEO for the next 10 years. Do you have someone in mind to take over when you leave? And I thought this was very interesting because if Elon had jumped on the question and said, like, yes, here's the person, it might have indicated that he was thinking of leaving sooner. But he basically said, no, I haven't even given that any thought. He said, what would you do if you're done being CEO? And Elon answered that design and engineering is what he likes to do best. So that he would probably just move into that kind of position. It sounded like he wants to stay with Tesla designing and engineering.
Right.
Which is great.
What is Elon going to do after? I mean, he has plenty to, keep him busy, plenty of companies to keep him busy.
Like puzzles
if he were to, no, I mean, he's not, he's not going to be doing, crossword puzzles and jigsaw puzzles and he's not going to be taking like vacations. He's going to be digging tunnels, sending things to Mars, and everything that we see him do.
There was a question from Baird about what's going on with the semi run rate, and Elon said that 4 years out, he expects to be making 100,000 semi trucks a year. And he said they might be able to exceed the specs that they announced last year on the semi truck.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like range, acceleration,
He said specs. I don't know what those specs are.
Super exciting.
He said the competitive strength of Tesla long term is not the car, it's not the truck, it's the factory. He said the Model T wasn't the product, it was River Rouge. So their long term sustained competitive advantage is going to be making factories that can make products.
And he said this before, it's not the machine, it's the machine that builds the machine.
Right. He talked about the fact that some of the best factories today have a rate of about 0.2 meters per second.
Right.
So it's about as fast as, a slow person can walk.
Right.
He said that they aim to have them moving at 30 to 40 kilometers an hour, which would be, if you do the math,
like 8.3 meters per second.
So we're talking something like 40, 50 times faster.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy.
Can you imagine where a factory where just cars or whatever you're making is just coming off the line that fast?
About as fast as they would drive on a road. Yeah, no, that's crazy. And the reason that Elon thinks this way, the reason that you don't hear about this much of other people talking about this, is because he thinks of everything in terms of physics.
Right.
He draws his boundaries at physics, not at, oh, that would be really hard.
Because as soon as you say 30 or 40 miles an hour in a factory, my mind goes, not possible. It goes, that seems crazy because I've never seen it. But Elon doesn't think that way. He doesn't think in terms of what he's seen. He thinks in terms, like you just said, in terms of what could be.
Right. What could the physical limitations of everything be? And so, that is the goal that he sets. Maybe he can't reach it. Maybe he can't get anywhere close. But he could, in getting, 2 or 3 meters per second, that would be an order of magnitude more than what we hope to achieve today. I mean, and that is the thing where
that's where the innovation comes from.
That is where Elon Musk is different than everyone else.
Right. David Tamburino of Goldman Sachs asked about the fact that, all these other automotive companies are doing autonomous cars, and they're doing it differently than you are. They're using LiDAR instead of just cameras and forward radar. So are they wrong? And Elon said, well, we're taking the hard path using neural net. It's very sophisticated radar, which allows us to see through fog and rain, whereas LiDAR cannot see through fog and rain. That's a very interesting thing to wrap your head around for a second, because what's the point if you can't see through very difficult things,
Right.
first of all. Second of all, he said they're spending a lot of time and money using LiDAR, which is expensive, and it's going to create a crutch for them because LiDAR, for instance, can't read signs, whereas optical can.
Right.
And they're going to begin to rely more and more on the LiDAR, whereas we are working through the hard part here of the neural net, which is, again, an exponential curve. Seems like we're going very slow right now, but he said it's going to get faster and faster. And he says, perhaps I'm wrong, in which case I will look like a fool, but I am quite certain that I am not. Another question came about the constraint of the 18650 cells, which are the batteries that are used in the S and X. Right now, that would constrain them to about 100,000 cars a year. And they were asking, is that a problem? And it sounded to me from the answer that Elon gave that they're very happy to produce 100,000 S's and X's a year, no more than that. It sounds like for the next few years, they're happy to produce those numbers. Why? Probably because the Model 3 is going to take care of most people, Model Y and so forth. The S and X can stay a luxury car.
Yep.
Now, another question came up about CapEx, which is capital expenditure for the Model Y. And Elon said it'll be 50% or half as much as they've spent on the Model 3 because they'll be able to use a lot of the same stuff, a lot of the robots and a lot of the stuff they've learned. Plus the Model Y, they're going to use what they've learned from the Model 3 to simplify that one as well. So he said, let's hear some Model Y news here, which is exciting. He says, we're going to make some capital investments towards the end of this year
Wow.
related to the Model Y. And so we should be hearing plans in about 3 to 6 months about when they're thinking of rolling that out. He said, I don't want to jump the gun on those, but I think we've got a good plan. I'm pretty excited about how we're designing Model Y. It's really taking a lot of lessons learned from Model 3 and saying how do we design something to be easy to manufacture instead of how to manufacture or difficult, really. There's a question about whether lithium ion is a good enough battery or whether they are working on some new battery technology. And here's something that was interesting to me. I don't know if I'm right about this, but Elon answered the question very quickly. And Elon doesn't normally answer a question very quickly. He usually kind of ruminates through it.
He thinks about it. He says, he
He
talks
talks through it out loud.
Yeah.
Here, he just jumped on. He said, lithium ion technology is good enough. That's what we're going to be using. So I take that to mean, if you read between the lines, maybe they're working on something and he didn't want to mention it. That's total conjecture.
It's a possibility.
Right. I do want to mention that John McNeil, who is their president of sales, is departing from the company. He'll be going to work as the COO of Lyft. And so now all sales and service will report directly to Elon, and there are no plans to fill the position.
Wow, that's a lot of responsibility to be filled there.
I'm thinking that means that it was a very short notice that he gave them. Because otherwise, yeah, exactly. I mean, Elon's got his hands full. Why would you want to take on that? Like sales and service, that's a huge part of the company.
Right. I mean, my guess is that he took his sort of end of the year bonus and said, all right, now that I have my job at Lyft, well secured and my finances in place, I'll see you guys later.
So get this, there's some talk of building a boring tunnel at the Fremont factory. Because Elon talked about there's two constraints, right? There's the battery modules and there's the parts conveyance. And one of those parts are the seats. The seats have to move from Page Street, which is about 3 miles away.
Right, so the factory where they make the seats is not connected to the Fremont factory.
Right.
So it's called the Page Street plant.
Right.
And they have to truck those seats in every day.
Right.
And they're constrained by how many trucks they can get in from basically a couple miles away.
Right, because there's a lot of traffic.
So Elon has an idea.
Yeah.
He's going to dig a tunnel between the two places and just have a high-speed conveyance system between the two.
Brilliant.
I think that is
And again, this is something
cool.
that if this came up at a meeting of any other company in the world practically, it would be laughed out of the room.
Right. There would be no, okay, so you think we'll build a tunnel. Like, no one, it would be like, ha ha, good one, Clarence, like, and you're fired.
Exactly.
That would be it. Like there would be no talk of that.
No.
It would just be, well, maybe we can hire more drivers, or we could work overtime, or we can have more bays or something.
Because yes, it's an expensive thing to do, but once you're done, you've saved so much time and money.
Right. This is truly outside of the box, like thinking here.
Elon has said that he thinks that they can build 600,000 Model 3s and 100,000 S's and X's with the existing factory.
Wow.
And lastly, there was a question from James Albertine about fully self-driving Autopilot 2. Elon reaffirmed that if they need additional hardware for regulatory approval of AP, we will swap it out, which will be a relatively minor cost to the company.
Oh, okay. So not to the consumer. The consumer's already paid.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep, they'll yank that computer out, put something better in if they need to. And he mentioned that not many people are opting for full self-driving at this time.
Interesting.
I mean, I guess because
That's fair.
that
If
makes
you
sense.
can't get it, why use the money now?
And he did bring up again that they are thinking of having a shared autonomy fleet, the Tesla network. So
Wow.
that is in the works.
So look out, Uber and Lyft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching this episode on the fourth quarter Tesla earnings. They do take a lot of time to listen to, but I think you can glean lots of cool information from them. So I do urge you, if you've got the time, to check out the link below and go listen to them.
Right.
Thank you for supporting our channel. If you are interested in becoming a Patreon supporter, you can listen to our Patreon bonus stories every week for as little as $1 a month.
Right, and we have lots of other perks if you are interested in helping to support us more. So head over to patreon.com and you can check that out.
Thank you so much for watching, everybody.
Now you know.